Well, we're on, guys. We're live. We are live on YouTube and Google Hangouts. So there will be times where people might actually come in and be like, "Ooh, Chris Chan? Somebody's talking about Chris Chan live?" Well, that's right.
Yeah.
Legends of the Internet, everybody. The very first episode. We thought it would be a good time to start with somebody that is good Halloween material, considering that it's Halloween weekend.
It truly is frightening. It really is. It's something else.
It's not even the word I would say at all.
Well, so the man that has the caricature with the glasses and everything, for those of you that are listening to the YouTube, that's Shane. Vin, he turned off his cam so he can't see his sexy pose. But
God. It's Saturday. I haven't got 1 or 2 drinks yet. So fortunately that's not gonna happen yet.
Well, that man is Vin, and then I'm Joe.
Yeah, and then there's Joe.
The best name ever. Hi, my name is
Joe.
JoJo.
No.
Oh God! And even somebody tried to combine JoJo with Chris Chan, and I was just like, "No, please."
Oh God! Why?
Somebody thought it would be a good idea.
Last week, I was already about to vomit. I ain't making it worse.
That's
that's
sacrilege, dude.
Well, listen, we hey, somebody on YouTube thought it would be a good idea to live stream like all of Chris Chan's videos, and the guy is apparently a big JoJo fan, so he decided to like do some JoJo references with Chris Chan.
Oh,
it was
interesting.
Yeah. Somebody thought it would be a good idea to play the flute version of like the first opening theme to like kind of like turn off the audio.
You.
Oh, jeez. So anyway, we told Shane, me, and our other co-host, Alex, who was supposed to be joining us today, but he is in Tampa enjoying football and the life of Tampa because we all live in Florida. But we told this story to Vin because he's never even heard of Chris Chan. So
yeah, which is very surprising to me.
Yeah.
I have a life, okay?
Well, I know, but I get you have a life, but
then I tend not to read it that deep sometimes, except for Sundays because I like to freaking mess up on Sundays for everyone.
That's the time where people pray and they try to forget everything that they've heard because this is a sin in and of itself. So the basis of the show is we're going to be going over a list of people that have been, like the name says, legends on the internet. And Chris Chan is obviously one of the biggest legends of them all. I mean, stories will be told in the chronicles of internet history. If they're ever to do like internet celebrity documentary, Chris Chan would probably be one of the major ones that they do.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so we thought it would be a good idea to start with him, even though we're kind of doing what the Random Assault podcast did, like way back, like a couple of years ago. They started with Chris Chan also, so we're kind of taking the first one away too. But
it's well, I mean, it's our take on it, and two, it was inspired by Random Assault. So.
Yeah, and those guys are really good. I mean, they talked about a lot of other people, and we'll get to Dark Side Phil eventually.
I can't wait. I hate that guy.
Everyone tells me it's bad, so I'm like,
yeah, it is. And see, the kicker about the show is that Joe and I certainly know these things. Vin, on the other hand, doesn't. So we'll be getting his live reaction with this as well, and I guarantee you, it is hilarious. So.
Yes, in our second episode, which we'll do as a guy that you guys don't know about, I'll tell you. I'll give you a preview, guys, of what the second episode will be. Second episode is going to be about George Wood / Navigator.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
Okay. Whenever we get to the very end of the show, I'll explain. But let's delve right in. Well, let's delve right into Chris Chan, since we're all anxious to talk about this. So we gotta start from his life and how he became to be the man he is known on the internet today. What?
In a world when a guy became a young boy, and then started his world, fucked up as it is, we present to you, Chris Chan.
It only gets worse from here.
Yeah. Well, so
it's time for the train wreck.
So Chris Chan was born in 1982. So he was a very, very he's like 34 years old now. But this is but this guy
this fucking guy.
Yeah, he's one of the first things that he likes to brag about, especially in his childhood years, or not even childhood years, like very, very babyish years, like infant years. He claims that his first word was monkey, and then he spoke it at 6 weeks old.
I highly doubt that. I'm just gonna say right now, I'm calling BS on that.
Yeah,
like,
he proudly admits to this.
I mean,
it's like to this fact, even though it's like physically impossible for like.
I don't even know what my first word was, dude. Yeah, people consider me like one of the most intelligent people among a group. It's like, no, I doubt it.
You need at least like 2 or 3 months to develop vocal cords in order to say something of some sort. I mean,
about
a 4-year-old who can speak 7 languages. That's a 4-year-old. That's no more. 6 weeks? Hell no. Shut up.
Yeah, I doubt it. I believe Chris is a pathological liar, but we'll get into that later.
Oh well, he admits it in a certain way, but his parents had him at a very, very old age. His mother, I believe, was I think his mother was in her 40s and his father was in his 60s.
Well, when you were telling a story about it last week, I kind of did math of it, and yeah, pretty much. I mean, later in his story, it gets freaky, and he's oh god,
yeah,
like,
I agree.
When you told me the story about how old is he, that's one thing. But then when you told me about how old is his parents, it made everything stupid sense. Unfortunately, for
stupid sense.
Stupid sense. Stupid sense.
Yeah. I love it.
But I think he was around like 2 or 3 years old. He was diagnosed with high functioning autism. Right. Back in the 80s, it was considered. It wasn't as widely as like recognized as it is today. I mean, my God, they have like autism walks and everything nowadays. But back then, it's like nobody.
It was very glossed over.
Yeah, nobody knew what it was, and nobody knew how to treat it. It was
still at those times, psychology was around, but never highly developed like as of now. So,
yeah. I mean, we still have a long ways to go as far as mental health care is concerned for certain, but yeah,
but psychiatric testing theories, all those studies, it's still, even though it's a theory, it's still negotiable though. It's a broad answer, like literally. No matter how many times we can explain it, it's still too broad of an answer. Not enough information at all.
It's true.
Yeah, so his parents obviously didn't really know what to do, and so they just basically their whole parenting ideas were just to coddle him and to shield him from the outside world, pretty much.
Oh, I mean, great idea.
Well, because his parents were pretty much fucked up anyway. I mean,
well, yeah, they were pretty messed up individuals. They really were.
Yeah, I mean, Cole Smithy, Chris's half brother. By the way, we never told you that Chris has a half brother.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Why?
Well, because I think his mother was. This is obviously. I mean, that Chris's parents were both married to other people at the time.
Relationship or.
Because Chris's father, I believe, was in a previous marriage, as well as Chris's mother. That's where Chris's mother gave birth to Cole Smithy, who's a very recognized movie critic on Rotten Tomatoes, by the way.
Yeah, that is actually legitimate.
Yeah, it's legitimate. If you go on Rotten Tomatoes and you go to for example, if you go to any Pixar or modern Marvel movie or whatever, you go down to the list of critics. Cole Smithy is considered to be one of the major critics. And that's Chris's half brother. Chris has told stories of when his mother had a gun and she almost shot him in the head.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, I also want to go ahead and just one thing. Anybody listening as well, all of us, take anything that Christian says with a huge grain of salt.
Yeah.
Honestly, that sounds a lot like what was that one sitcom show? Always Sunny in Philadelphia. There was a scene just like that. Yeah, because it was I forgot which. I haven't really seen the show too much, but I know there was one character who tried to shoot another one because he thought it was a burglar. And I think that's exactly how that played out here. But anyways.
Yeah, so there's not much. I mean, Cole Smithy and Chris are, I think, almost 15 to 20 years apart. Yeah. So Chris doesn't really know Cole that well. And I mean, they know they're brothers and everything like that. But Cole tries to stay away from that family as much as possible.
Yeah, and within good reason, honestly.
Yeah, so that's whole Chris's family right there, and his extended family. Also, pretty much has considered they're the black sheep of the family. They're there, but nobody really talks to them. But anyway, so that's Chris's family in general. Chris's early life was interesting, to say the least. He claims that there was a babysitter that used to take care of him, and in his words, she was, quote, very abusive because. What she would do is Chris would try to get attention from her or something like that, and she locked him in his room, full of and by the way, his own room full of toys, and he considers this to be the most traumatizing experience of his life, to the point where he was considered a mute for a few years.
That's right, he was a mute, but
I can somewhat see why, because staying in your own room for that long, all night, let's say, even if you have toys to entertain yourself, over time, if you have no communication, it's almost like consignment. What's that word, Joey? When you go to jail, consignment, solitary
confinement.
Yeah, that's the word. Solitary confinement. You go nuts a little bit.
Well, yeah, as human beings, we are very sociable animals. We really are. And the thing is, though, is that I can see partly that. It's just the way it comes off sounds really silly, but I see Vin's point. I really do. But yeah, I don't know.
It's perfectly. I mean, it's not perfectly normal, but I can see how it can be developed because of that issue. So, if it's happened once or twice a week, while other times he spent time with his family, I consider being normal. But then every single day, 4 or 5 days a week, or even 3 days a week, of hanging out with the so-called babysitter and lock him in his own room for the rest of the night or so, I can see how he could become cuckoo a little bit.
Yeah.
So this is getting to the point where he starts going to James Madison University in Virginia because they live in Ruckersville, Virginia, by the way. He goes to James Madison University to take speech courses to sort of improve on his talking. And this leads into one of Chris's biggest changes in his life and in his childhood. At his local mall, there was, have you guys ever heard of Leonard Bernstein or Bierstein?
Yeah.
Leonard.
I think so. It sounds very familiar.
I heard it.
Yes, he was he was in the 80s, he was like an animatronic bear conductor that would just yeah, you remember?
The bear conductor. Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's a northeastern thing only.
Yeah, because it was never down here. I never saw it. I heard it by my family up in
instead.
Yeah, so I mean it never goes around anymore, but he would go like the Leonard Bernstein was an animatronic bear that used to, sing songs and do music in the mall. And one day Chris and his dad were just in the mall. And by the way, his birth name was Christopher. This is extremely important because it leads to this. So Leonard the bear conductor starts talking to Chris and he goes like, "What's your name?" And Chris says, "Well, my name is Christopher." And for some reason, Leonard couldn't say the name Christopher, so he said, "Oh, nice to meet you, Christian."
Yeah.
And this was a big point in his life that he decided to legally change his name to Christian instead of Christopher.
For some unexplained reason, it just resonated with him, and it's just like, I'm going to be Christian now.
Maybe he didn't like his name before, and heck, if someone acknowledged him with a different name, he'll just roll with it.
Well, yeah, it's just he's very adamant about being called Christian at this point. Super adamant about it.
Well, here's the thing: an animatronic robot who talks to him, who actually give him a actual feedback. I mean, yeah, he go to college and stuff like that, and he may, quote unquote, he might have some friends. But do they acknowledge him? Maybe not too much. Rarely not. So, seeing how this animatronic robot bear talks to him, and for some reason he cannot pronounce his simple two or three syllables. Yeah, exactly. He gives him Christian. He's like, "Someone noticed me? Oh my god!" It's like literally senpai kind of. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh god. We're going into that territory, huh?
Yeah, and
I'm in that territory. What's up?
And speaking of that territory, Christian, it sounds like a really weeaboo name. It really isn't. It's just a shortened version of his name. So just keep that in mind. Because I honestly thought it's because his love of Sonic, which we'll be getting to. He was, he was doing that because it was weebs shit, but it really isn't. It's just a shortened version of his name. That's all. So another note to point out.
Yeah. So there's not much really to talk about his childhood. I mean, the only major thing that happened besides that was when he was in elementary school, he was sent to the principal's office, and there was a point in when they was talking with the principal where this is his version of the story. They pinned him down to the ground, and they started audio recording his cries and shouts, and his parents would eventually end up suing the county school system because of it, and the elementary school, and of course they lost the case. And this was the point where they decided to move away from the county, and Chris was homeschooled for I think until he got into late middle school, high school, I believe. But some people have actually people that are considered arm physicians or arm psychiatrists or whatever. They think the story is that Chris was going out of control emotionally. And they didn't know what to do because back then, I mean, they didn't know what autism was. They don't know how to react to, people with autism. So they decided to pin him to the ground to try to calm him down and everything. And they recorded the voices. So they're like, okay, so this is his behavior. This is the type that we're dealing with and everything like that. And, we're hearing both sides of the story, but
right.
Nothing we can hear is 100% true.
Exactly. It's take everything you hear with a grain of salt again, because there really is no definitive. This is what happened, and this is not what happened. It's really all up in the air.
Well, here's the thing. In psychology, back then, they thought it was just electrical impulse problem. They never thought of like chemical reaction in the brain or anything else. So that's why you see back then asylums or like other psychologists to do like shock therapies and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, and also poor mishandling of their
Yeah, because, like I said, autism was never really fully understood. So what their first reasoning back then was a shock therapy. Maybe some other chemical imbalances or some of that. They did some harsh things back then. And
oh yeah, absolutely. Like really like unspeakable.
it was gonna help. I mean, heck, when you see witches and stuff, what they do, they burn them in a stake. Well, you can't really prove it, but you know that happened. So crap.
So we get into high school, and this is where the origin of Sonic Chew pretty much comes into play.
Yeah.
Sonic Chew, which is
Sonic Chew.
yeah.
For those of you that don't know what Sonic Chew is, I mean, imagine Sonic and imagine Pikachu combined together. That's pretty much what Sonic Chew is.
It really is. But
You ever imagine?
yeah, it's that, but also keep in mind that that he also injected himself basically into the comic as well.
Oh yeah, but oh my god,
Yeah.
and the whole I had to refresh myself on the whole comics before I started doing this. So Chris decided that we're gonna jump ahead a little bit, but Chris decided to make a comic book about Sonic Chew. And if you look at the actual comic itself, it looks like it was drawn at by the way, he's about 23 when he drew the first issue. His drawing resembles the style of a 7-year-old. There's a lot of misspellings. Like in the very first sentence, there's a misspelling in it.
Oh.
So you can already tell it's off to a good start.
Oh.
He has no idea what size consistency is. So there's like some panels where characters look really large, and in another panel, they're like right back to normal. There are weird, confusing panel structures to the point where he has to actually number them to let the viewer know exactly how to read it. And there's a lot of wording in it too. Like, you know how comic books, they try to keep the wording as simple as possible. You just look at the pictures and the dialogue and that's it. Mm-hmm. Chris takes it another way. He does it in paragraph form. There are like pages where an entire like essay is being displayed, and it's like people just get bored just reading it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's hardly engaging as it is, because obviously it's not a good story, but at the same time, doing that also does not help your case.
No. And then the story itself, I mean, it starts off with Sonic Chew, pretty much. So the way it happened was there was a wild Pikachu just roaming around in Station Square, which is like the setting for the Sonic games. Mm-hmm. Basically, he ripped off the ending of Sonic Adventure. He is like, okay, there's a water creature that's destroying the city, and Sonic has got to use the Chaos Emeralds to become Super Sonic and defeat the monster. The monster ends up sends Sonic flying, and he collides with the Pikachu, and that's how Sonic Chew is formed. People don't know it. People don't, and it's people to this day don't know if the Pikachu actually transformed into Sonic Chew or if they like fused together like how Yu-Gi-Oh does fusions.
Yeah.
Or if they, but later we would find out that because Sonic, the original Sonic would appear in a later issue, but people were confused at the time. So it's like, okay, so it's Sonic Chew. It's just Sonic with like Pikachu recolor with a tail, and he can do electricity. But this is also where Rose Chew comes, or Rosa Chew, as the audiobook puts it, because there's an audiobook version.
There's a legitimate audiobook.
Yeah, with annotation.
What?
Yeah. Somebody actually took the time to do an audiobook of all the Chris Chan comics with annotations to go along with it. Because back when it was first going on, like the creator behind the audiobooks would put in her own commentary in it to like sort of like, okay, this sucks, why are you doing this? But Rose Chew is basically Sonic Chew's love interest. She's basically like Amy Rose, but she's got like Pokemon features to her. And the way they first meet is like, oh, they fell in love at first sight. it's something like out of a bad romance movie that you would see on like Valentine's Day or whatever. Like they just fall in love.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
It is. It's bad. It's
no,
really
there's
bad.
It's bad.
yes, there's a classic poetry line that Sonic Chew says. He goes, "I love you, Rose Chew. As often as birds tweet, you are my lovely heart sweet."
Already gets that point.
But eventually, like the comic would focus on like Sonic Chew trying to save Rose Chew, like in almost every episode, because Rose Chew can't do anything except getting kidnapped. But then that it's kind of like Princess Peach in a way. But you know,
I was just thinking about that.
But then, the comic would just change focus directly onto Chris. Like Chris inserted himself into the comic.
Yes,
and it was all about him now.
Yeah, that was the point I was trying to get across.
And then people started complaining that he was putting too much of himself in there. I shouldn't say complaining because they were just fucking with him, but
well, yeah, they were more like just like, dude, really?
Like this comic is called Sonic Chew, and Sonic Chew is barely in it.
Yeah,
so,
he's now no longer the the main protagonist.
But the comic would start to become very sexual.
Yeah, that then.
It gets to a point where Chris thinks it's a good idea to tell kids about sexual education, so he starts explaining like all the anatomy of like his characters and how they do the deed. And he's actually drawn his characters like doing the deed. It's like this is like not common knowledge. But there's a
what you say like.
But it leads to like one of his infamous stories that he drew in the comic. So basically, the plot for this one is that Sonic Chew and Rose Chew go online and they find that they find drawings of them with the girl characters, because there's a lot of girl characters. But they look at that, but they see drawings of like them with like penises on them and then pretty much everything like that. And they're like very, very disgusted by it. So they decide to like go to the company that posted the pictures and say, no, that is so wrong. That is against everything that I've learned from the Bible and America and everything like that. I was like, so Rose Chew's basically like, hey, you got to remember the story of forgiveness in the Bible. You know, this is something that you shouldn't be mad at them. And, you know, you shouldn't be doing this stuff. Let's just ignore them. And then the guy and like the evil villain, he basically says, go Rose Chew, go and play with your pickle, and throws a pickle at him or at her.
There's a, okay. So there's a bit of a story behind the pickle. Let me explain this here.
Yeah,
come on. All right.
Go ahead.
So the pickle thing, Chris Chan, I mean, he hates pickles, just fucking hates it, and it becomes part of one of the jokes about him. One of the running gags is that he hates pickles, and you can tell by the comics that you could really see his mental state in all this. I mean, really, it's fucking ridiculous. Like even Sonic Boom, the actual show, not the game, the show actually poked fun at him about the pickles thing.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
yes.
they actually put a joke of Chris Chan in a children's Sonic TV series.
It was so. I will give him credit where credit is due. It was subtle enough that only people who knew about Chris Chan would understand. Well, kids would be like, "Oh, that's kind of funny because he doesn't like pickles," but you know. So I'll give him props for that. I will give them props for that. Execution, baby. That's how you do it.
Yeah, and pickles remind him so much of dicks. So
yeah, because phallic in shape and nature.
Yeah.
You know.
So the story basically ends up becoming that after Rose Chew gets hit with the pickle, she starts taking off all her clothes, and she goes, I am woman, hear me roar, and then starts. And then starts attacking, and then starts basically face raping the villain to the point where like he's like bloodied and dead and everything like that.
It's just, it's too much. It's too much.
And that's like the most that's like the infamous like Sonic 2 story that is told in his comics, besides the fact that it gets like very dark and deathly and depressing.
It gets really gritty at points too, if I remember.
But we'll explain why as we go on with the Chris Chan saga, because a lot of it is his mental state. Like he starts, instead of like putting himself in the comic, he starts talking through his characters and how they go through. But this, so now that the comic's out of the way, we can go into pretty much, I think. Okay, so at this point, Sonic 2 was formed, but he was already graduating high school. So at this point, at his high school graduation, he participated in an art contest of some kind, and the winner would like get recognition and everything. I think he created something Star Fox related. But he didn't. Yeah, but he didn't win the contest, and Chris would end up crying his eyes out during his graduation. And, like when he went up to get the diploma, he didn't even like shake the principal's hand or whatever like that. Yeah. He just got his degree and like just sat back down. I think his father said something along the lines like that was the most shameful thing that he said his son ever did. Like he was. Like he was ashamed. He was ashamed of his son at that time. At that point.
Yeah, at that one point.
Like I don't even know you anymore.
That's pretty much. We got to talk about Chris's gal pals, because that's what he calls like his like friends. Because he only had female friends growing up.
At least he got somewhere.
Well, there's a story about this too. Earlier this year, actually.
Oh God.
People like Christorians, as they're called now.
I never even heard of that before.
Wow.
Yeah, Christorians. They got in touch with a few of Chris's old high school buddies, and some of the women have actually said like, we weren't friends with Chris because we liked him. We were friends with him because we pitied him. Oh. And so a lot of it was because he never stayed in contact with any of his friends in high school, so to speak.
Well, can you blame him? I mean, his social reaction really is just, it's a little bit off detail because, well, okay, not off detail, but it's just off tune.
Really? Well, I mean, that whole guy is off tune. Shit.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. That too. So, yeah, exactly. I mean, if people like say, oh, we're friends with him, 2 minutes later, yeah, we don't know the guy. We're just there to make him feel better, and God forbid we pity the fool. I mean, I don't know. What do you want me to do?
Hold that thought. Please continue. Go on ahead.
Yeah. So anyway, so this is the point where Chris goes to college. He's a college man now. He goes to a community college, and he doesn't really know what he wants to do at this point in his life yet. I mean, he basically just spends his time like trying to come up with ways to make Sonic Chew like a popular thing. Yeah. Like he wants to be rich off of Sonic Chew, and
after so much work that he done to it, you would hope, please.
But it's two copyrighted characters, one from Nintendo, one from Sega. There's no way that he's going to get rich from it. No way, because he'd have to get copyrights from them, and they would probably be like, "No, thank you. We're trying to come up with some original stuff." Although some people have said like Sonic Chew could work if it was like done with the right person as just a recolor and that's it. If it was just something on the webcomic, that was probably what it was going to be like better for, but nothing money related. But Chris Chan goes to Piedmont, Virginia Community College, PVCC. It's at this point he's like 21 years old. I think he was in class on his birthday that this happened. One of his teachers ended up yelling at him for doing like a poor job or something like that, or interrupting class or whatever like that. So he ends up like after class, he ends up crying his eyes out at like one of the hallways and like outside in one of the in the breezeways or whatever like that. And there was nobody really to console him at all. He was all alone. His parents weren't there. He really didn't have any of his friends from high school there with him. So this is the point in Chris's life where he decides to go on his love quest. Yeah, it's what it's called.
I have congestion of BS, so yeah.
Yeah, no. He literally calls this his love quest. He is going to find a boyfriend-free girl to make into a sweetheart from the ground up. That is his words, not ours. This is his words. Because
heart attacks about to start.
So one of the first things that Chris would do was he would just go up to random girls that he thought were pretty or whatever. Very, very awkwardly too. He would just like go up to them, and sometimes at the end of class or like some girl in like the hallway that he ran into or whatever. And he would just like, hey, you want to go out with me or whatever like that. Just like, and I've seen, and Chris is not the only one that's done this. I've seen this at like, when I went to college, I've seen people do this too, and it was just around Valentine's Day. It was very creepy. But
we're on this part now.
Yeah. So the girls are basically coming up to him saying, "Sorry, I have a boyfriend already." And this is where he comes up with the term "the infinitely high boyfriend factor." This is a term he uses to say like 99% of women are all taken by guys, and this is another reason why he hates men in general, because they take all the pretty girls away from him. B, he's extremely homophobic.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, Christian is homophobic?
Yeah,
Very
he's extremely. He hates gays. It would become like very, very apparent as we get near the end of this whole thing, especially how this whole changes. But his homophobia like really, really showed. That's what, like I said, that's why he only had female friends in high school. He didn't really have any guy friends or whatever.
Yeah.
But
you know what they say about people who are extremely homophobic?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something we'll also talk about because
we'll get into that.
Oh, Jesus. But so Chris thought, I've been going up to these girls and they haven't really wanted to be with me. He decided to do what no one else would do. He decided to make a homemade sign and put that said, I'm a 21-year-old guy looking for an 18 to 21-year-old boyfriend-free girl, blah, blah, blah. And he would
remember that term, boyfriend-free girl.
Yeah.
That sounds so wrong.
Yeah.
Oh. It does.
He would sit on a bench on the college campus, and he would sit down on the bench, and he would have the sign next to him. And a few people noticed, because not only would he do that, he would also put up newsletters of Sonic Chew all around campus. The dean of the college finds out about this. She goes up to Chris in person saying that you're soliciting sex pretty much on campus. And Chris is like, no, I'm not. I'm trying to find true love and honesty. So, because that's his words. He's trying to find a true and honest woman. So
yeah, that's his thing, is true and honest, by the way. True and honest. He likes
to portray himself as the true and honest man in the world. Like, there's nobody more true and honest than he is.
Says the pathological liar.
Yes.
And
there would be a point in where Mary Lee Walsh is the name of the dean, and this is important because Mary Lee Walsh is also the name of the main villain in the Sonic Chew comic. And the reason why she becomes the villain in the comic is Mary Lee Walsh in real life took his sign and ripped it up. And at this point, Chris considers this to be like a heart-shattering moment. Like, his heart pretty much has gone down to like 5%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And at this point, he gets yelled at by the dean. He gets expelled for a year because of this. And he's got to go see a psychiatrist for anger management issues, because he would also like scream and yell at her. And I think there was like some like threats of death being thrown at her or whatever like that. But it got to a point where it's like, okay, you need to control your anger, then blah, blah, blah. And so he gets expelled for a year. So he decided to find other venues to try to do this. So he decided to go to his local mall, the same mall, I believe, where the Bear Conductor was. And he would do the same thing. He would put a sign next to him. And I actually have a story that an old friend of Chris's, and I don't know if they're still friends or not, but somebody actually posted a blog of one of the instances where they first met Chris doing all this. And if you don't mind, I can actually read what this girl wrote. She calls this the tale of the crazy pacer. This is one of the fascinating stories of what a day in the life of Chris was when he had the sign and everything like that, and he was at the mall. All right, so I'm going to read this. Once upon a time, there was a guy who paced in front of Abercrombie and Fitch. He'd come and do it for hours on end, just walking back and forth. He was an okay-looking guy, not evil-looking like creepy molester dude. So he would pace for his allotted time and then leave. Sometimes as he paced, he would sing or shout. Nobody really could ever tell what he was saying. Oh yeah, and he always wore the same shirt, a nice little long-sleeved red and blue number that had a gold crest on the left side and white collar and cuffs. Oh, by the way, another thing about Chris's attire, this is exactly what she's talking about, is Chris Chan would wear the same outfit like a cartoon character would.
Yeah, it's true, actually.
Yeah, and he also had the Sonic Chew medallion, as we mentioned before, Vin. He's got his character hanging around his neck, and people are just like, what? So anyway, eventually, I guess he got bored of just pacing like that because he started to bring his Game Boy SP with him. He had his headphones hooked up to it, so he would pace like that all the time. His peak hours were usually between 2 and 4 o'clock, and he usually left by 5. Then one day, he decided to start pacing on the PacSun side, so he started pacing in front of our store. I think the people at Abercrombie were relieved because they were worried about the floor out front getting worn down. Yeah. So this one day, on the day it started, we were being floor set, and Lin noticed that Crazy Pacer kept looking into PacSun as he paced. And she also noticed that he has a fair amount of junk in his trunk, if you know what I mean.
Hey, big ass?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, in fact.
And Star and I both noticed at the same time that his jeans were high water. And we all laughed at him. No, actually, we were laughing with him. He just didn't know it, and he wasn't laughing along. And this day, he was acting particularly crazy. He'd pace and then stop and shout something at the wall, and then keep pacing. And he also did some singing, even getting into the vibrato falsetto junks. It was hilarious. So anyways.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so anyways, someone, I can't remember who, suggested that the next time he looked in, we wave at him. Whoever suggested it should die, unless it was me, in which case I feel I have received enough punishment.
What the hell?
Yeah. Of course, he looked in, and we all waved at him. He looked kind of bewildered and sort of scared at first, but quickly caught on and waved back. Then he went back to his pacing, but he was looking into PacSun with greater frequency now. And anytime anyone would make eye contact with him, he would wave. I had to get Star an iced tea from Sabero's, so I left and waved at Pacer as I went out. When I came back, he was sitting cross-legged on the floor outside PacSun, and he took the initiative and waved at me first. I smiled and waved back, but the smile wasn't to be friendly. It was because I thought it was hilarious that he was sitting on the floor like that. Good thing he couldn't tell the difference. So we went on about our business, doing floor set and junks, and a little while later he came in. I was behind the corner and Star was all, "Psst, Anna, he's coming in!" Exclamation points everywhere. I was kind of apprehensive about this. I mean, I had been doing floor set all day and I didn't really feel up to dealing with another crazy. But he came up right to the counter that I was standing behind, and he looks right at me, all fidgety and twitchy, and he goes, "You look to be about 19 years old, right?" I busted.
Okay, please continue.
I
What
busted.
a fucking odd question to start with. I'm sorry, that caught me off guard. I've never heard this story before.
No,
Yeah.
really, literally, this is new content, and I'm
Oh my god.
I'm ready about the hell.
Beautiful.
So I busted out laughing because he guessed it right. Star was laughing too, over from the sidelines where it was safe. "That's exactly right," I affirmed. "See, I know these things. I can just tell how old someone is," he said, kind of proud and still timid at the same time. "Oh," I said. "My name is Christian," he said, "but you can call me Chris. I am Christian W. Chandler." "Oh," I said. "Hi, Chris." "So," he continued, "do angels have names?" I found out later I found.
Wow.
Oh, okay, composure.
I found out later that he meant to say, "Do angels like you have names?" Poor guy was so nervous he didn't get it right. Probably, I said, but I don't know. Well, what's your name? He asked. Sorry, I don't go for pickup lines, I replied, kind of laughing. His face kind of fell, and I felt sorry for him, but he pressed on. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to insult you. I was just asking your name. So what is your name? Anna. Oh, that's a very pretty name. And I like your hair. It's a very pretty color. My eyes are two different colors. One of them is green and the other is blue. That's because I had pink eye a while back and one of them stayed that way. What color are your eyes?
Whoa, gosh, okay.
I was pretty grossed out by the pink eyes story, but I told him anyway. Sometimes blue, sometimes green, and usually gray. Oh, that's neat. It's funny how that happens, isn't it? Yeah, I said. So do you want to, go get some ice cream when you get off of work? He asked. No, I just ate, I said, and I'm still pretty full. Plus, I'm getting off soon. Okay, well, Anna, is there any way I could get your phone number and maybe I can give you a call sometime? No.
It's really blunt. Oh, but
Well, do you want my phone number then? You can call me on my cell phone. No, thanks, I said. He wasn't.
Nice about it.
Yeah, he wasn't to be deterred. Do you have a boyfriend, Anna? No, I said. Oh, he said, brightening and starting to say something else, but I cut in. I'm not looking for one, though, I said. His face fell again, but this time I felt no pity. All right, he said, fidgeting. Well, do you have access to the internet? I nodded. Okay, hold on a second. I'll be right back.
God.
I nodded as he went back to his spot. That's in quotes, by the way, where he kept his 2 tote bags and his Sam's Club cup. I turned to Star, and she was all, dude, he is so weird. And I was like, I know, make it stop. He started to come back in, and I was like, I have to go in the back and get a drink of water. But Star shook her head. I had to finish what I started. So Christian came back and handed me a card with a crudely drawn Sonic the Hedgehog and some other yellow Sonic-looking creature on it, along with Christian's name, email address, and website. It was a homemade business card. That's my email address, and you could just email me sometime, okay? Okay, I said, not intending to email him at all. He left the store, packed up his things, and went. His work for the day was done. But the story does not end here, my friends. Oh, no. He came back. Not the same day, but the day after that. And that's pretty much the end of the story. So that's just one of the few instances of Chris Chan in the mall trying to find girls in the area. But this wouldn't go unnoticed, by the way. A couple of the mall security would notice Chris, and he would be like, "Well, you can't be doing this here. You're soliciting." And again, he's like, "No, I'm looking for true love." And there would be a point where they ended up putting him in handcuffs and escorting him out of the mall and banning him unless one of his parents went with him. So it got to a point where he starts putting the cops in the comic and starts calling them jerk cops.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And by the way, he makes it very apparent that the mall security guards are black. So he starts calling them B jerk cops or B manager. To make it very simple, it's like, okay, you're W manager, you're the white manager, and you're the black manager, and they make fun of me. He's extremely racist, by the way. Not only is he homophobic.
That is true. It's just, oh my God.
Because on his sign, he makes it very clear that he only wants white women. He wants no black women at all.
Yeah. He actually had a name for it too. He says,
that's no darkies or whatever.
No darkies. It's like, really, dude? Holy shit.
So he starts incorporating them in the comics. He even got in trouble in Walmart and Target. The one in Target, he actually got sent to jail for. So this is not the first time that Chris has gone to jail, by the way. He's gone multiple times.
Yeah.
But this is just the first instance. So they charged him for loitering and soliciting. He gets the charges dropped, but I think he has to do community service or whatever. But he also at this time, around this time, he finally gets accepted back into college.
Super Mario 3D Land!